Good.
Okay.
Mr. Dawson,
Yes, sir.
do you see me coming in from two different devices? Because I'm on the phone now, but on the tablet, it never showed me enter the studio.
No, I just see you on one device.
Okay, okay,
So we'll, and that one seems to be working fine. So we can go with that one.
okay.
Okay, we'll wait for Ms. Jackson to get back here.
But what I'm saying, what do you need?
We're not recording yet,
Yes, we are recording, and I cannot stop the recording. So what I will do is I will just mute her for right now until she decides to return.
Okay, all right.
Okay. So welcome to another episode of Conserve Your Energy podcast, where we dig deep into the issues that shape our community. I am Adasa, and I'm your host, and I'm joined by um, my co-host, Minister Frederick Norman. And today we have an incredible group of guests on the panel. Joining us is once again Pastor Everett Spencer, a graduate of Judah School of Ministry in Columbus, Ohio, who has served in multiple roles, including senior pastor, youth pastor, and worship leader, and now commands his own place of worship. And we're also joined by Annette Davis Jackson, who was a 2016 Republican candidate for District 55 of the Georgia State Senate. And today's episode is titled The Vote versus the Vault, where we'll be exploring the crucial question of why have Black people who have consistently voted 95% of their time for the Democratic Party continue to come up short when it comes to receiving the campaign promises that are made. The short answer, if the culture doesn't control the currency, it can't control the vote. So we'll dive into how economic power and political influence intersects and what can be done to close this gap. And I'd like to say we're going to try to keep this one about an hour today. So we want to keep our questions and our answers concise and to the point. And we're going to start out with, would you guys like to say anything before we start?
No, not me. Let's just roll.
Okay.
Let's roll.
So historically, Black voters have aligned with the Democratic Party in large numbers. There's Miss Annette. We've already done introductions, Miss Annette, so we're just jumping right in. Today's
Let's
title
jump.
is The Vote versus the Vault, and exploring why Black people have consistently voted for the Democratic Party but continue to come up short when receiving campaign promises. But the first question is, historically, Black voters have aligned with the Democratic Party in large numbers. Why do you think this loyalty exists, and has it been beneficial or detrimental to the community? And we'll start with Pastor Everett Spencer, if you'd like to touch on that.
Well, the short answer is it has been extremely detrimental. And the reason it exists, there are a myriad of reasons, but if you want a historical context, then you have to start talking about the fact that shortly after slavery ended, black people were overwhelmingly Republicans. In fact, I believe my sister, Dr. King, uh, said that her uncle, Martin Luther King, and her grandfather, M.L. King Sr., were both registered Republicans. There are a couple stories that kind of give hint to how black people began to vote overwhelmingly Democratic. When one of the stories goes something like this, that when M.L. King Jr. was arrested and was held in Birmingham, Coretta Scott King reached out to then candidate Richard Nixon for him to intervene. Richard Nixon refused. He was in the middle of a campaign and didn't want to get involved. She called John Kennedy. John Kennedy immediately sent Bobby Kennedy down there and got M.L. King Jr. released from jail. And allegedly, M.L. King Sr. made the statement when he was interviewed by the media that John F. Kennedy is one Democrat I could vote for. And that began the sway of black people going more towards the Democrats. I got some feedback over here.
That would be on your side, I believe. I don't know if your audio is up on whatever it is that you're.
No, I use it now. It's gone. It's gone now. So
Okay.
I have it set the same way I always do. I was just in a meeting a few weeks ago where we were talking about the Republican and conservative messaging, and I was very open and honest with I won't say who the former senator that was there was, but I was very honest with her and telling her that in my opinion, Republicans have done horrible with messaging. Their message never resonates, and they don't do a good job with the messaging. And so because Democrats basically control the media, they win the messaging battle, and it's full of misinformation, full of unfulfilled promises. And for some reason, our people don't seem to remember the last election and that got nothing for those promises then. Into more broken promises now. So this is the cycle that we're in. I don't want to hog the time. We'll talk more about it as time permits. But I think this is the cycle, and I think this is the problem, that our people have short-term memory loss. They don't remember that, for example, while Barack Obama was supposed to be the first black president, black people got absolutely nothing from his presidency. Absolutely nothing. Meanwhile, the LGBTQXYZ community got everything he promised them and then some.
And to kind of touch into what you're saying in regard to the messaging, and I'll let Minister Norman and Miss Jackson jump in as well. But to be honest with you, I think there's there's a missed opportunity there, because I don't believe either party is strong in the area of messaging. So if the Republicans just did a little bit of messaging, they might be at an advantage, because the Democratic Party has gotten so comfortable with their expectations of the black community at this juncture that I don't even believe they feel they even have to spend any time or any money with their messaging. But Minister Norman, what are your thoughts on why do you think this loyalty exists, and has it been beneficial or detrimental to the black community as a whole?
Well, it's definitely, from my perspective, Mr. Dassa has been on this detrimental side. And I think one of the things that Black Americans have shown a lack of understanding is the process, understanding the process of the American system as it pertains to voting. Voting is supposed to be transactional. And it's a transaction, enacted between those who are seeking to vote and those who are given a vote. And Black Americans, and by and large, not all Black Americans, but to the degree of 95% voting, on one side of the ticket, and getting nothing shows up, nothing in return. If you don't understand the process of a thing, then, and you're supposed to secure, something in that transaction before you vote, not after. See, because I don't have to give you anything after you vote, but if you don't secure anything before you get my vote, then you come up empty-handed. And, as Pastor Spencer just said, the LGBTQ community with Barack Obama, why did they get what they wanted? Why did they get same-sex marriage signed into law? Because they made a demand. They made a demand of candidate Obama, and they showed up with the checkbook. They understood the process. Dr. Claude Anderson, said that Black Americans, by and large, don't control the vault. It's not that they can't, they just don't. So, because politicians are for sale, you can buy them every day. And
we don't want to jump too far ahead, but yeah. I would say, even in this most recent, from the day, for instance, when Sister Kamala Harris made the announcement that she was running for office, and then they had, within I think a week's time, they had white women for Kamala, they had the Black men for Kamala, they had Black women for Kamala. Now, of course, a lot of the money that was already sitting in the coffers transitioned over to her, but they did raise a significant amount of money in a relatively short period of time for Miss Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris. So, and of course, you and I, we talked about it. I said, well, damn, if we could raise $100 million overnight just by having a Zoom meeting, then, if they get their heads out of their behinds, they realize that we could probably take that money and pour it right directly into our community and make the necessary changes. But we're so aligned with government being the governing body that we don't even.
Savior.
We go ahead.
I said we're aligned with them being the savior.
The savior, Miss Jackson.
Well, and let me say this right quick, Mr. Adassa, before Ms. Jackson responds. Yes, that money was raised by candidate Harris, but do we know specifically who it was raised from?
We don't.
Do we know? Has that been identified? So it's a grand, in the grand scheme of things, yes, she raised $100 million, et cetera, in XYZ amount of time. But do we know who that money was raised from? And if it just happened, and I'm gonna just put this out there, if it just happened to be, Black Americans, okay, but what is the contract? What is the agreement that's been struck? She's already said that she would not sign an executive order as it pertains to reparations for Blacks. So what? You raised $100 million, but what is the contract? You're supposed to get the contract before, not after.
Right, but I mean, and we'll go into that. I wanted Ms. Jackson to kind of tap into. Do you understand why this loyalty exists between the Black community and the Democratic Party, and has it been beneficial or detrimental?
Well, hey, do you really want me to tap in?
Yeah,
do you really want me to tap in? Well, I'm gonna
tap in. Tap in briefly.
If you really want me to tap in, it goes deeper than that, right? There is a piper mentality, okay? There is, and please excuse me, the voodoo mentality, right? So they've been under hypnosis, if I may say, okay? And they don't really know it. And so there's a private concealment, and it goes back to, let's think about the federal government and just, legislating sanctuary cities, right? And when I looked up sanctuary cities, just look at all the states who have sanctuary cities. So what it is while Black people are just saying, hey, I'm just going to vote here. Hey, they're doing the replacement theory. When you look at sanctuary cities, I'm going to tell you, California, Colorado, Connecticut, Illinois, Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York, North Dakota, Oregon, Rhode Island, Utah, Vermont, and Washington. And even our home state of Georgia, they have several counties. Athens, Clark County, where University of Georgia is. Atlanta. Why is it Atlanta? Wow. Columbia County and DeKalb County and Douglas County. And then it goes through all these other counties, and the 118th Congress really did that. So we have no idea what the concealment is. We just operate off of the Pied Piper, okay? The Pied Piper theory. What sounds good? Because we fail to research. We fail to ask somebody, and we fail to see that the freedom of our country, all right, is at stake. And I have a problem with that. And the reason,
We
and
don't
the
want to.
other
We don't want
reason
to go.
why Black
We're
people,
gonna come. We're gonna come back to that. But I had a woman tell me today that it was absolutely inexcusable that I was voting for, I never told her I was voting for anyone, but she says if I'm voting for the rapist, that was absolutely inexcusable. And naturally, I didn't want to get into a tit for tat with her about this, but she proceeded to send me a link to 10 reasons why uh, Donald Trump I should not be. And I had gotten to the point I said, you know what? I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted because you have these. I'm sitting here looking at this woman and I'm saying, seriously, like you really believe in your heart of hearts that Kamala Harris is going to provide you with everything that you are looking for, and she's unscathed and she's just the candidate, and so it's inexcusable for us to go in any other direction. I can't waste my energy and my time at this point. I have to be a little more strategic about my approach to this whole process because I would be having these conversations all day long. I would be having these conversations all day long with my fellow, Black people within our community. But I wanted to. I didn't want you guys to jump too far ahead. But Annette, as someone who ran for public office, what challenges did you personally have when addressing the concerns of Black voters who predominantly aligned with the Democratic Party? Like what was your approach to, did you approach it to change the minds, or what did you do when you were confronted with individuals that you saw were inundated?
yeah. I just spoke to the heart. They said, "Oh, you're my favorite Republican." That's what they said. All across the state of Georgia, they said, "You're my favorite Republican," because I'm not going to badger you. What I'm going to say is, number one, what can I do for you? What number two, what do you need? Number three, I can tell you where to go get it. Hey, here's my number. Call me. This is the agency you can go to. So when I was running, I had resources. See, the thing about it is having resources where somebody can go. Right now, the Biden-Harris administration has no resources. They have no resources at all. And let me tell
Well,
you,
what do
when
you
you go
mean
to
when you
the,
say they have no resources? What does that actually mean?
that means that they don't have any resources to give the Black voters. They have no resources. If you, I'm doing a Freedom of Information Act request within the Congressional Budget Office on tomorrow to see what, out of all nationalities, how much has a Congressional Budget Office authorized. Okay. And so we're going to be able to talk about that because let me tell you, when Trump comes in, he's going to do a financial audit and a forensic audit. And we're going to find some interesting things about what's happening in our country to really do the replacement. And what I know in early 2021, and I'm going to read this, the Biden administration issued an executive order restoring the Obama era policy repealed by Trump that grants asylum. Okay, so the Black community doesn't know that all this asylum is going on and it's legal so that they can work, okay, to keep migrants, okay, into
let me
the
stop you right there. Let me just stop you right there because I don't want to veer too far off. But I'm going to get Pastor Spencer. I want to ask you, and kind of stay in the same area. How do you deal with individuals that you run across on a daily basis that you feel have been, for sake of a better word, brainwashed or inundated with misinformation, and do you find the time for them? Do you invest the time? What is it that you do? How do you approach that?
When the first time I appeared on your show, you asked me a question about um, what I saw for the future of the Black community. And I answered you very directly. I said, the Black community in America as it is today is doomed, because any community that doesn't do what's in their own best interest cannot survive. Here's the other reason they're doomed. The scripture says that a person that there will become a time when people have believed so many lies that they would lose the ability to discern or hear truth. And so when I run into somebody and I know that I'm giving them the truth, I know that I'm telling them facts, I know these are things they can measure and check out, and they are stuck in their position, then I have to do what the scripture tells me to do. And that is, the Bible says, let the ignorant remain ignorant. And so I just walk away. Because there's nothing, listen, there's nothing you can do to help a person who doesn't want help.
Doesn't want to be helped.
And when you're trying to give them the information to help them, listen, I've got a young man that I've been mentoring. I started mentoring this young man when he was about 15 years old. He's now 46 years old. We've been in each other's life this long. When Trump was running the first time, he's a businessman. And so I appealed to him as a businessman. And I said, you're a businessman. Here's what a Trump presidency will mean to your business, blah, 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 blah. He told me, ain't no way. I'll never vote for Trump. You can just stop talking to me about it. And it got so tense between us. I didn't want it to affect our relationship. So I just stopped the conversation and we didn't talk for a few months. Well, a few weeks ago, we were together, hadn't seen each other in a little over a couple years. We talked off and on. And he was helping me do something. We're riding in this truck. He's helping me move some stuff. And he said, oh, I'm sorry, man. I got to tell you something. I said, what's that? He said, I owe you an apology. I said, for what? He said, I'm on the Trump train, baby. He said, I finally see what you was talking about. But it took him years to see it. You understand what I'm saying? So
That's good, and that's just one. That's just one.
Yeah.
Because there's a tremendous amount right now of individuals that, I mean, just the blinders up. They're not seeing. I mean, even you have that stuff that's right in front of your face. You have the economy. You have gasoline. You have groceries. You have things like that. And very simply, hey, Miss Harris, what are you going to do that's different from what you've done? I've actually had, and I once again, I don't want to veer too much because I have a question for Minister Norman, but I've actually had conversations where, and I know all of you have probably confronted this as well, where people say, well, she doesn't have any power. She's the vice president.
That's not true.
Right. Not only is it not true, but in this particular instance, she has had unprecedented amount of power because of the Congress 117 and 118, which basically said that she's the deciding vote. So she's had, I think, upwards of 34 votes. She set a record for the amount of votes that she actually broke.
Yeah.
So if there were legislation that was placed right in front of her, she would be the deciding vote. So she's had an unprecedented amount of power. Yet people don't believe it because they believe, well, what do vice presidents actually do? They don't do anything. They don't do anything. But I want, because I know you want to say, go ahead.
Let me just conclude my statement this way. I teach the church I pastor this very simple truth. For most generations, they had to discern between good and evil. Now that's become pretty plain. We could tell good from evil pretty much. Most people can. What I tell our church is what we have to learn how to do now is tell the difference between good and almost good. And that's much harder to do because something that sounds good usually is almost good, but it's not really good for you. And we have what a lot of things Kamala Harris is saying sounds good. The problem is she has a history of failed implementation.
Not only that, and I'm gonna ask this question to Minister Norman, but not only that, I wanted to say this. COVID was a test of tests for your behind.
Yes, sir.
And the world failed miserably. So why, when you propose a test of that magnitude on the world, and in particular this country, we failed that test miserably, then why the hell would I be concerned with actually presenting you with something that was actually going to help you? At this point, gloves are off. I don't care if I'm the powers that be behind the scenes, because it's like y'all gonna do whatever I say anyway. You're gonna follow my lead. I'm gonna tell you what to do, and you're gonna. So, but what I wanted to ask you, Brother Norman, what role, since this is really something that I know is that you're passionate about, what role does economic empowerment, lack thereof, play in the Black political engagement? Can focusing more on wealth within our community shift the political landscape?
Okay.
And I know you have an answer for that.
I'll answer by asking the question: is the Black community poor or are they broke? And anybody can answer, and then I'll come back.
They're
They
broke.
broke. They
They're
broke. That's an easy one.
Well, why?
Well,
Because
you know
the-
what? And
Go ahead.
Mr. Nat.
Go ahead, Pastor.
the black community is not broke. I promise you, the Black community is not broke. They just spend money on what they want to spend money on. Okay, they spend
So
money.
when you spend money on, so when you spend money on what you want to spend money on versus what you need to spend money on, then that will put you in a position of being broke.
But I believe broke. I don't know if Pastor Spencer is on the same page where I am, but I believe broke is more figurative than literal. It's more of a figurative statement because they're broke mentally, they're broke emotionally, they're broke, and so it doesn't necessarily. It's not necessarily a analogous on financials. It's more so on where they are mentally, emotionally, which doesn't allow us to. But go ahead, Minister Norman, because I don't want to take away from your point.
Okay, if a community or if a culture cannot control their own currency, what do you think they have the possibility of controlling in any other realm? If they cannot control their own currency, how many times does the dollar turn in the Black community? Once. It's in and it's out. So something is broken. Yes, we know mentally, spiritually, but when you cannot control your own currency within a community, economic empowerment will escape you on every side. You see, until Black America understands that, and Pastor Spencer and I talked about this, politicians are for sale. You can buy them every day. Yeah, you can buy them every day. But if you have nothing to buy them with, then the decisions that are made concerning your geographical area, you just get the crumbs thereof. Well, Dr. Claude Anderson said, since Black Americans don't have the resources to buy a politician, then you do the best thing until you can. You rent one. You get a group of like-minded, critical thinking, Black Americans together, and when you understand and come to accept that they are for sale and they can be bought, but if we don't have the resources to buy them, then let's go rent one. How do you rent them? You rent it. It's a transaction. Politicians do the bidding of those who bring who affect their coffers. So if Black people don't even understand, the ability, and this is one thing that the politicians cannot do, and this is one of the biggest things that has affected Black Americans. They're not united. No politician can do that. You can't write Congress can't pass a law for that. There's no unity. If it's coming in the Black community one time and leaving out one time, the dollar goes out. It comes in and it goes right back out. You can't write a law for that.
But then, okay, so then we go to what Ms. Jackson was saying, where Ms. Jackson alluded to that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris don't have the resources. So then the question becomes whether we're buying or we're renting for politics.
No.
I'm going to allow you to kind of go ahead. I'm sorry, because my question was going to be whether you're buying or you're renting the politician. What is the actual expectation? What is the expectation? What are we expecting these people to actually do? You know what I'm saying? Because
absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing.
We're not expecting to do anything.
Right now in this climate, absolutely nothing. Because when you look at the historical base of the last 4 years, it was absolutely nothing. And because the border wasn't closed, it was absolutely nothing. And then what you find out is there are temporary asylums. And I'm going back to my original temporary asylum designations for immigrants. So you can imagine why they're here legally, and they're putting them to work in various factories. I don't know how they're, taking them from all these sanctuary cities. And Georgia has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cities that they're taking them to. And we have to remember that Georgia has a lot of commodities. A perfect example, a chicken factory. And they even have some of the prisoners run the chicken factory. They have peaches, they have pecans, they have resin, they have timber, So what we're dealing with is a commodity issue, and Black America is not doing those jobs anymore. So we're really, as an American citizen,
the question becomes whose fault is that? Because you often hear people say, well, this goes back to, I guess, I don't know if this is the black jobs that Trump was referring to, but I think it's twofold advantage for having these individuals come in. Number one, yes, they will do jobs that most individuals will not do. Most Americans are just not going to touch those jobs. But number two, if you lay out the red carpet for these individuals, like in California, where you have situations where they're giving them, first-time homebuyer loans up to $150,000 with no money down, then you pretty much will secure your vote. And the thing about let's just look at the Latino, the Hispanic community.
The governor didn't vote for that.
Okay, but let's just look at the Hispanic community. If that was something that was okay, well, good. But if that was on the table, and we know how those communities, how they conduct themselves, then if you have 8 individuals living in one home and one person qualified to get one of those homes, and I know he may have vetoed that one particular piece of legislation, but they did approve some home loans for individuals that were not citizens, then you just secured yourself not only that vote, but the 8 votes of the individuals that are living in that house until they're able to get out on their own. So they're buying votes. They're buying votes by providing. And if why would you provide anything for Black community when the Black community is already locked in? The polls already show, even though. Go ahead.
And what you just described, Mr. Adassa, as it pertains to the Hispanic community, and you just described a transaction in the voting process. We are going to give you this, and we expect that from you. So, one hand is going to wash the other. But when as you just said, if we already got the Black vote locked up, Why would we give you anything? You're going to do it anyway. Why
So
would
what would it take
why
then?
would we give you anything? We got to buy right now. They're having to buy the immigrant vote or the Hispanic vote, et cetera, et cetera. But guess what? They're going to get something out of it. Why is it that black Americans are satisfied with getting nothing? But I'm going to vote.
I
I'm with her.
don't think they're satisfied.
Go ahead.
I don't think.
Hold on.
I don't think
Let's let Pastor
satisfied.
Spencer.
Yeah.
Let's let Pastor Spencer jump in because he had something he wanted to say in regard to that, and we'll come right back to you. Go ahead, Pastor Spencer.
There's an old saying that goes something like this: tough men create easy times. Easy times create tough situations. Those tough situations create tough men. So in other words, there's a cycle that as things get easier, the people get weaker. Black people have been trained for years that all they had to do was stand in line, talk about racism, talk about slavery, complain about their condition, and the government was going to come and save them. Now, let me give you a historical context. Everybody knows about Black Wall Street, right?
Right.
Right? Know about Black Wall Street?
Yes.
Okay? So Black Wall Street was a prosperous area in Oklahoma where the first Black millionaires lived. In fact, the first person to own a private plane in America was a Black person who owned a business on Black Wall Street. White racists got so angry, they burned it all down, right? Here's
Right.
the part of the story most people don't know. Do you know that in 3 years, those people had completely rebuilt Black Wall Street?
Yeah.
Now, here's my point. Evidently, there is something different about the people who are on Black Wall Street and the Black American today.
Yeah.
Because those people didn't wait for the government. They didn't wait for insurance companies. They didn't wait for anybody. They got up and did it themselves. Our people do not have an entrepreneurial spirit. They do not want to get up and do it themselves. They keep looking for somebody to come rescue them. Rescue yourself. Get together. I have a nephew. He came to me a few years ago. He said, "Uncle, I can't find a job." And he was complaining about, he couldn't find a job, blah, blah, blah. I said, "Well, tell me what you do well. What is one thing that you do well that you think you do better than anybody else?" He said, "My mom taught me to clean a house from top to bottom." I said, "Okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go door to door in this neighborhood and just knock on doors and tell the women," he's 6'5". I said, "Just tell the women in this neighborhood that you'll come clean the windows in their house and tell them how much you'll charge them to clean the windows." I said, "I guarantee you can make $1,000 in less than a week." But they're not taught to think that way. They're not taught to think about creating opportunities for themselves. They're taught to think either the government's going to give it to me or I got to go do something illegal to get it. This is how they're taught to think. It is conditioning at its highest and worst stage.
And the more we have these conversations, the more it has become very clear that it really is private sector responsibility. It really is private sector responsibility. Those to whom much is given, you have a responsibility to go back into the community and say, okay, like once again, not to beat a dead horse, but all the money that was raised in the Zoom meetings that were had. Literally overnight, we could have opened up community centers in every one of those cities where people got on this Zoom, and you're talking about thousands of people that got on these Zoom calls that Vice President Kamala Harris had. Literally overnight, we could have had brand new community centers in most major metropolitan cities in this country. When you're talking about, let's not even talk about the number that they put out there. They said 200 million, but let's just say 50 million. 50 million can do a tremendous amount. If And then, and it's crazy. I'm not to sidebar, but you have these individuals that want to, say, well, we want to tax the rich. Let's tax the rich because the rich, they're not paying their fair share. You know what I'm saying? We need them to put more money into the coffers. But then you literally are watching a government that has shown you that they don't give a damn about what you expect them to do with your money because we're going to send it overseas anyway. We're money laundering right in front of your face. So we're going to send it to the Ukraine. We're going to send it to Israel. We definitely not sending it to your black ass, excuse my language, because you don't know what to do with it. You know what I'm saying? So, but I wanted to ask Pastor Everett, in your experience as a pastor and community leader, how does faith influence the political decisions of the black voters, and could that be leveraged more effectively within the context of economic empowerment? Because we love a good church, and during during election years, where do they always go? To the church.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and that's the only time they show up. In my lifetime, I started preaching, Mr. Odessa, you don't know this, but I started preaching the gospel when I was 15 years old. I'm now 59 years old. And in those years, I've only seen one pastor stand up to a politician publicly. The late Bishop R.W. McMurray, pastor of a church in the 80s that I was a part of, church of about, in the early 80s, church of about 2,500 people. It was considered a mega church of his time. And Tom Bradley, who had been the chief of police in Los Angeles, asked if he can come to the church because he was running to be the mayor. He came to the church, and the bishop allowed him time to address the people. He got up, told the people he wanted to be their mayor, told them what he was going to do as their mayor, blah, 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 blah. No sooner he got back to his seat, before his butt hit the seat, the bishop got up and said, well, Mr. Chief of Police, I would love to be able to put my support behind you. He said, but it's hard for me to do that when my people can't come to church without having to walk past whores and drunkards and drug dealers. He said, if I could just get these streets cleaned up, I would support you. That night, we had service that night at 7 o'clock. That night, it looked like a raid. You hear me? There was so many police cars going up and down the street. And when I tell you they cleaned that neighborhood up in one night.
This is in Los Angeles?
Yes. This happened in Los Angeles in the early 80s. One night, because one pastor had the nerve to say, if you want my support, this is what you got to do for us immediately.
Yeah.
Now, most people don't understand that when Margaret Sanger committed to doing her deadly work called the Negro Project, is what Planned Parenthood was originally called, she literally said, the way we'll get the word out is we'll use the black pastor. The people will listen to them. And the Democratic Party saw that this was such a great strategy. She literally paid black pastors to say that this was free health care. Aborting babies was free health care. And most people don't even know who the first pastor was who won the Margaret Sanger Award. But I'll tell you, his name was M.L. King Jr. in 1964. Okay? And so the Democratic Party, because they were so tied to Sanger, they have co-opted her tactic. We'll go into these black communities, we'll get these black pastors who control large groups of people to assure us their votes, and we'll just enrich them. And people still don't understand today that most of these black pastors that are telling them to run out and blindly vote for these Democrats are doing it because they're paid to do so. That's the dirty truth. Okay? Right. And so a guy like me comes along and says, ain't nobody paying me nothing. I don't want your money. I'm going to tell the people the truth. I'm seen as a conspirator I'm seen as a conspiracy theorist. I'm seen as working against the black people because I'm telling them, no, do what's in your own best interest. Don't do what the system is telling you to do. So yeah, we got a real problem. We got a
So I
problem.
mean, so Minister Norman, what about if the pastor, the bishop, the minister, what about if this individual, if their ideology actually falls in line with the politician that's running for public office? What if there's no conflict there? And I know you're probably saying that's impossible, Pastor Spencer, but if there's no conflict there, then wouldn't it be to their advantage to leverage the power that they have within the black community, if possible?
Well, the key thing you just said, if there's no conflict, if is the key word. But when think about what Pastor Spencer just said. Who's the one being economically empowered behind what the politicians are doing a lot of times in the black community? It's the black preacher. Now, Pastor Spencer and I met, probably over 20 years ago, I think, Pastor, when you came from Ohio.
Yep.
And what he just said right now, I was echoing that same message throughout Atlanta, Georgia, with a lot of the black clergy, because I saw it. The only one that's getting paid is you all. You have no interest in the people prospering. So I have to second the motion of what he just said. And because I was one willing to stand up and tell the truth. I didn't have major no congregations or mega ministry. I was a sounding voice. But I saw it. God showed it to me. So a lot of this is being driven by whose pockets are being padded. Who do you think if my heart is not in it, if my heart is not in it for the people, my heart is more in what's going into the vault, my vault. Who do you think, which way do you think I'm going to lean? You're going to tell me Dr. King being the recipient of the first Margaret Sanger project did not understand what he was engaging in? I find that very hard to believe.
Absolutely. At that point, yeah, he knew exactly what he was doing.
But he was being paid.
I'd like to ask Sister Jackson, when you were embarking upon your journey towards, running for public office, did you find it necessary to make the rounds within the black church? Did you go to black churches and speak to pastors and congregations, or was that someplace that you avoided?
Oh yeah, no, you don't avoid anybody. But see, when you're a child of the Most High, that you know what, they already know that you're running. They even asked you, hey, can you come speak to our youth? And so I've done all of that. I've been a former college coach, so I've been into the system. I've been an educator for the alternative school. So the alternative school, everybody funnels into the church. So I've always went to the church, to just lift up not only the name of the Lord, but lift up, why don't you think about these things? Or what can I do to help you expand? Because here's the thing. It's about expansion. And I believe when you get the millionaire mindset, just like my father, and my family taught me entrepreneurialism, and you saw it. And, you didn't say anything, you just saw it, and even being on the golf course, you saw the art of the deal. So you saw it. But back to the church, absolutely yes. And for those pastors who were talking, I would never vote Republican. And all I would have to say, well, that we were Republicans, okay? Post-slavery, pre-slavery, how do you think that the historically black colleges were it came about? They had black college presidents who were Republican. And it doesn't matter if the Rockefellers funded them. It doesn't matter who funded them, and we want to talk about, we have white founders, but no, let me tell you, my degree from Spelman College means so much because of the reputation. And it means because I really became that woman. Okay. I became that woman. And so going into the church is about, when I went to the church, it's about the elder woman teaching the younger women. That's what I went into churches. You know, I'm
So,
like,
so let
okay,
me
where's
so
your younger women?
let me ask the three of you this then, because now I go to the belief that I really, I sometimes it's almost laughable. I really believe at our core, in our souls. I would go so far as to say, and I don't know, there's been no poll to determine this number, but I go so far as to say
You there?
95% of Black individuals in this country are conservative and don't even know it. They're
That's
conservative
correct.
just based on the way that they conduct their lives on a daily basis. They're conservative and don't even know that they are implementing conservative practices into their day-to-day life. What is it that does not allow them to see that they are actually walking, breathing in this ideology, yet they are invested uh, in this democratic platform? Democracy, whatever Democratic Party, whatever it means these days, because I don't even have a clue or a definition of what it means these days. But why do you think there is such a blurred line between how people actually live their lives and what they represent from a voter standpoint?
I really don't think there's a blurred line. I really don't think there's a blurred line. What I know about Black America, you can't pull the wool over their eyes. You know, the old schools, you can
You
say,
can't.
fool me
You can't.
once, you can't fool me twice. And
Mm.
I know that Black, no. I'm talking
That might
about
be
in this
that might
voting
be the Black
cycle.
people
Okay,
that you
we
spend
stick to
time
the
around.
topic, right? No. I'm talking about people on
Fooling
the
through your
streets.
four
As a
times.
matter of fact, I met a woman. I met a woman the other day, and she said, "I'm so tired of looking around, and I'm seeing all these immigrants, and I'm so mad because they're bringing in the cartels, and then the cartels are going to the Black community, and they're putting drugs in the community, and my sons are a part of that, and they're selling drugs." Let me tell you, they're not stupid. I promise you, Black America. And let me tell you this, Mr. Adassa, you prophesied 95% or more, and I'll even go 98% of African Americans are conservative. And I believe that they're going to carry that vote for Trump in this particular election. I believe that they're not going to be stooped. Nothing's going to be concealed. We've seen through the debates how, as they say, word salad. Hey, what about your policy? How did you revoke 37 of Trump's 38 executive order, and he had market influence, and he was trying to protect the consumers in their financial affairs, and you get rid of that for an immigration policy. You get rid of that for showing that you have asylum. No, Black people they understand that. They really
They're waking
they
up. They're
understand that.
waking up. I'd like to,
I
Pastor
would say
Spencer.
I would
Hold on, Ms.
I
Jackson.
would
Hold on, Ms.
say
Jackson.
the bill.
Pastor Spencer, what's your thoughts on that blurred line?
I keep in mind that me and Miss Jackson have different experiences. She approaches this from her experience as a politician, and I respect that very much. I respect anybody that's willing to get into the fray of politics and fight for what they believe. I would definitely, she'd be somebody I'd support just from getting to know her here today. But I see it differently. I think that people are deceived because they allow themselves to get drawn into their emotions too easy. And the Democratic Party knows this. If you bring up race, if you bring up police brutality, if you bring up any of these hot button issues, Black people get so emotional they can't think straight. And now they're so worked up until now they can't even think. You know, I'll give you a prime example. Before Donald J. Trump decided to run for president as a Republican, he was probably the most talked about personality in the Black community. He was mentioned in almost every rap song. I want to live like Trump. Trump was the icon. He was the picture of Black success. In 1987, he received the NAACP award along with Rosa Parks. He supported Black causes. Jesse Jackson said, "When I have an issue, no one does more to help the Black community than Donald J. Trump." All of these people were his friends. Al Sharpton, Oprah Winfrey, all of these people, all of these Democratic politicians, they were his friends. The moment he said, "I'm running for president as a Republican," those people turned on him, changed the narrative, said that he was a racist, and Black people bought it, hook, line, and sinker with no evidence. They didn't even look at the fact that the man almost married a Black woman in like 85 or 86. He dated her for 2 years and was seriously looking at marrying her. I think she turned him down. None of that even came to bear because they had gotten so worked up in their emotions that they lost the ability to think logically and reasonably. So that's where I think Black people do themselves a disservice. They don't know how to detach their emotions so that they can make good, sound decisions.
And Minister Norman, why don't you kind of wrap us up with your thoughts on that blurred line? And I know, like I expressed to you, we communicate quite often. And now, my new friends, Miss Jackson and Pastor Spencer. So these are individuals that are like-minded. And so these are the people that we seek out. But what about when we're outside of our immediate circle? Do you feel like most of the people that you deal with are at their core, they're conservative and they hold the same values and ideals that we do, but they just are confused about what that actually means?
Absolutely. I believe the confusion is there. The emotionalism that causes the confusion for one to not even think clearly or with logic, as Pastor said. I remember telling Vernon Jones, former CEO of DeKalb County, back in when he ran his first campaign, for the CEO position in DeKalb County, and I was one of his foot soldiers. Introducing the candidate, door to door. And I told Vernon then, as I observed him and I listened to him in some of the meetings, I said, "Vernon, you're a closet Republican. You have all the virtues or the values of a Republican. It exudes out of you." "No, Frederick, no, Brother Frederick, no." "Vernon, I see it. You're conservative at core." What did he go? When did he leave the Democratic Party? Here, about 5 years ago?
Uh-huh.
But I told him with his first, because I saw it, and so that's a specific issue. But as it transcends to so many Black Americans that I have met, I said, "You're really conservative. You are just through your emotions." I told young Kaylin, right, the young lady I'm working with right now in the real estate, when I met her back in 2015, 16, she was a student at Clark, Atlanta. And I told Kaylin, I said, "Kaylin, her father owned a restaurant in West End, Q-Time, and I used to go in there for lunch. We was rehabbing projects in that area." I said, "Kaylin, you really conservative. You got no." I said, "Kaylin, I understand. You over there in a liberal HBCU, on a HBCU campus, Clark, Atlanta, Morehouse, Spelman, Morris, Brown. You really can't show your true colors. But it exudes out of you. But because there's so much emotionalism in it, that it causes common sense not to even be common anymore. So when I see the lines that have been crisscrossed and the blurred, and when I speak to, Black Americans, after a few moments, when they go off on Trump this and Trump that, and I'll say, give me the facts. They generally go quiet. They can't give facts, but they're hyped up in their emotions. So until I learn to control my emotions, to be able to look through the clouds and the smoke to see the actualities are, how did Trump become the most racist person in America according to the media now? How? When, as Pastor said, go check the record. He was highlighted in almost every rap song. He was in Black Woman that he dated. Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, all NAACP, all singing his praises. What is clouding your thinking today, 2024, Black Americans, as it pertains to this individual? Your emotions. So I see the blurred lines all day long. I see it. And I'll close it with this right here. One of the brothers I grew up with in the church with in Atlanta, where I got saved at, his disdain, and I think I may have shared this with you, Pastor, his disdain for Donald Trump is so deep. I'm talking about that just pure hatred, man of God. And I asked him one day, I said, brother, you know what? If Donald Trump were to step up to you right now with a checkbook and said, I'm going to write you a check for $100 million, no strings attached. I want nothing from you. This is yours free and clear to go do whatever you want to do with it. You know what he said to me? I wouldn't take 1 cent from Donald Trump. Emotions. You're psychologically damaged. Emotions.
Well, you got to stand for something, though.
Well, yeah, you can stand for foolishness if you want to. You're right. You got to stand for something.
You got to stand for something.
Right.
I take the money.
Oh, I mean, come on. But no reason, no logic, no common sense. The man said, I want nothing from you. No strings attached. You go your way, I'll go mine. You're telling me that you hate somebody that bad that you would leave the check on the table, and you tell me something is not emotionally damaged or blurred? Yeah. When Donald Trump presented the $500 billion platinum plan for Black Americans, and Ice Cube decided to some degree that he was going to pick it up, and they was ready to crucify Ice Cube.
Right.
Tell me the lines are not blurred? Something, brother.
Miss Jackson, briefly, would you like to say a parting word? And then Pastor Spencer, would you like to say a parting word? Miss Jackson, 30 seconds.
She got her mic off.
That's
almost like when I did the Senate hearings. That's what they did. Oh, you got 30 seconds. I was like, okay, I'm gonna make it move.
30 seconds.
What I'm saying is that is Black America. See, you cut me off. You're not right, but it's okay. The Black America is going to come through in this election, and I'm the only female. Okay, 30 seconds. Okay, Black America is going to come through in this election, and they're going to come through because they've been raised properly. They've been raised properly. I am a mother. I know that we did not raise any fools. I promise you. And I'm going to end in less than 30 seconds.
It's so wonderful to have you. And Pastor Spencer, would you like to give us a parting word, maybe even a scripture?
My parting word is simply this, that we have to continue to fight. We have to continue to do what we can to educate. We have to continue to do what we can to break down walls, to help our people see that they need to help themselves. Stop looking outside of themselves. God has given all of us the ability to change our world however we choose to change it. You can change. Listen, I need to lose weight. Guess who that's up to? Me. That's the way
Yeah.
God. That's the way God
Okay, but
designed.
lose it.
That's the way God designed it. It's up to me. So
What I'd like to do in relation to what you're just speaking, I'd like to come together with you very intelligent individuals, and I'd like to do a show where we kind of talk proactively about what can we start doing, like get the pad and paper out, get the pens out, and really start putting down some notes about what we can start doing, how we can begin implementing it, and then begin the process of implementing to start getting the word to those that need to hear. You know, I was using my social media platform for a while, and I realized that it's funny. It's an interesting dynamic on social media because most people, the only people that want to talk to you are usually the people that disagree with you. People that do agree with you, generally they stay in the background and keep quiet. So I didn't really see the purpose in continuing to espouse my positions through social media. I felt like the best way to do it would be for me to actually get out there, boots on the ground, and be active in the streets. People can actually see what it is that I'm actually doing and not just talking about it. So I definitely like to offline and online discuss with you guys ways by which how we can actually begin to to do more of the work that we're already doing. And it was a pleasure spending this time with you all. And
Thank
until
you.
next
Thank you very
time,
much. Thank
thank
you. And
you.
I have your answer. I have your answer. It's billboards. You got to put some billboards out there. You got to put some
Let's do
billboards
it.
out there in
Let's
every
do it.
single battleground state,
Bring me
and
some
find,
billboard
you know,
information.
the dollars.
Let's
There it is.
let's discuss that offline for sure. You guys take
Okay.
care.
I'll send you a billboard. I'll send you a billboard that I did. Okay.
All
Thank
right.
you, Pastor. Good to meet you.
wonderful meeting you as well. Thank you so
Bye.
much. Bye bye now.